From the Tapped Out Wrestling Network studios, we bring you the original Tapped Out Wrestling podcast with your hosts, Nick McDaniel and Myron Fancher. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Don't know if you remember from last week. About a week ago, we had Bobby Mathews on for an interview, and the conversation was starting with an article that he had written about the Midnight Express for ProWrestlingStories.com. However, as typical with Bobby and us, we went really long. We went a couple hours talking. We had a great time. I mean, obviously we covered the article, and then just like, guys talking bullshit about wrestling, man, we just kind of got off on a tangent, and we went for another hour about the current product and just topical things, bullying, all that kind of stuff that just like we just typically do. And we just love Bobby's opinion. He is such an encyclopedia on wrestling. He's been doing this for a while, and he's been writing these great articles for ProWrestlingStories.com. Especially we like to talk old school wrestling with him off to the side a lot back in the day with Continental Championship Wrestling, Southeastern Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling, because we all kind of grew up in the same area here in the southeastern part of the U.S. So anyway, this is going to be part 2. I did break it off where we covered just pretty much the article since that was relevant for last week. But then now we're going to go into the second part where we talked about the topical things just on the current product. So here's part 2 to the Bobby Mathews interview.
Nobody gets that kind of heat anymore. Nobody gets the crowds angry enough that they're going to attack the guy. Or nobody even gets the crowds like booing mad like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
When we had a house show back in December, The Miz, when he was cutting his promos, he cut a lot deeper on the house crowd than he does the TV crowd in the promo.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually going Rick Rude, where he was, bashing the people for their appearance and stuff, and the town just getting heat. And he didn't even cut that much on TV because I guess, because it's a product that has to have advertisers and stuff. But that was the closest I had seen to a crowd getting in unison, pissed off at a heel at that way. And it was great.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I think Miz is actually a really good heel.
Yeah.
He's kind of a throwback to that a little bit, even though he probably wouldn't like the term throwback. He's very, he's part of the quote-unquote modern product. But my favorite...
Like an old school guy that wrestles safe. He wrestles safe with his other people. He's professional. A hated heel. Yeah, he's a guy playing a role, but you never know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, people get agitated with, as I say, he'll have probably the longest career like Cena out of most of them.
Yeah.
I mean, how long has he been in WWE now? He's been there for a long time. He is a veteran.
11 or 12 years. He's never been hurt, and he's never hurt anybody.
Well, he did miss Ron Killings at one time.
Well, yeah. Yeah. You might want to catch him.
You just see the look of oh shit on his face. You never see it on Killings because he's upside down. He has no idea what's about to happen.
But I still would say in that stretch of run, let's say that's the one guy he's really, putting a bad on or whatever. That's still pretty damn good.
I mean, So here's the thing, like when we talk about getting heat, and I know you guys are going to have to edit me down, by the way. I know we've gone long here.
Don't. You're good. No.
So here's the thing about getting heat. Johnny Valentine would get heat, and you guys know who I'm talking about when I say Johnny Valentine.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Johnny Valentine would get heat and rib people at the same time. He would wait until a crowd would start to gather outside, get out of his car when nobody was looking, and then put his hand on a coworker's car. And there are fans who have gathered to watch the wrestlers enter, but they don't see him get out of his car, right? He puts his hand on his coworker's car, and he goes, "You bastards better not touch my car." And walks in the dressing room. Then his buddy, his coworker, comes out. He's got 4 slashed tires. Windshield's busted in. Son of a bitch. I love that level of heat. I love that level of, I'm just going to get you people pissed off at me. There are ways to do it. You can either make people, in an interview, make people so mad at you, or do something so dastardly.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, and eventually, here's what I think is going to happen. I feel like, and I may be the only one who feels like this, I feel like everything old will become new again. And you're going to eventually see guys realize, oh, this hard-hitting style where we're trying to work the marks and we're killing each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're going to see the hard-hitting style go away, but they're going to start doing more stuff to get people more engaged.
They're going to have to. Ratings are at a low right now. I mean, it's all things compared, not all-time low, but they're on a low right now, and they're going to have to do something to get them back up. And to get back up, you're going to have to draw people's attention.
I'll ask you, Bob. I want to get your opinion on this. This is something I've said for years. I don't know why you go out of your way to appease the smart marks. They're going to watch regardless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the people that threaten, like, I won't watch anymore, the diehard, they call them the IWC, whatever you want to call them. They're watching anyway. So go after, you've got to entertain the person who, and I don't want to say a casual fan, but, but kind of the casual fan, somebody you're going to have to entertain more to keep them sucked in to watch.
Got to make kids.
Yeah, you don't have to necessarily go. I mean, at their peak, when you think about it, Rock wasn't putting on quote unquote 5-star matches, and even Austin wasn't putting on 5-star matches when he was in his peak.
No, he couldn't anymore.
Exactly. That's my point. A lot of these guys, and you hear them even now, where guys are saying, like, look, man, I've got it down to a T. I know what the greatest hits are. That's what they want to see. Work the crowd and quit killing each other till you're only wrestling for 6 years. I mean, you can get it. You got guys like, think about it. Flair wrestled forever and never once. He had some rough matches.
He was in a freaking plane,
but he wasn't a high spot machine
and still wrestled.
Right. I mean, you say he wasn't a high spot machine, but he did that bump every night from the top rope. The
same bump. He master at it.
Yeah, I mean, and you'll note that he never really landed fully on his back either. After he broke his back.
Yeah,
and Rollins goes hardcore like he does, and Balor that goes hardcore like he does. They can hardly stay on the roster from injury.
Right. Here's the thing. I want to see. I would personally rather see Daniel Bryan for 15 years rather than the 5 years or whatever it was that he got to be on the WWE main roster. I'd like for this guy to have had the career he could have had. I'd love to see, because what happens is your body breaks down. You take incredible punishment, and you would take punishment even when guys were working lighter.
Mm-hmm.
You're still getting slammed on a hard mat. And if you've never been body slammed, and I have, it hurts. It knocks the wind out of you, especially if you don't take it right. It hurts. It's not fun. You get suplexed by somebody, it hurts. You get all of that wear and tear, and then instead of working punches, now you're punching people in the face for real, or or in the body. You're tightening up, you're stiffening up all of your punches, all of your blows to the head, because you want your stuff to be tight. You don't want to knee people in the face like Seth Rollins did to John Cena. And I don't think Seth is an unsafe worker by any stretch. I think accidents happen, but when you're trying to make your stuff that tight, then accidents are more likely to occur.
Well, there's such a thin margin between the crowd not seeing you make contact with the face when you punch at them and breaking their nose with a knee strike. That working punch or that working blow is such an art to get it where it's believable. But then they don't teach people to sell well enough. If they could get people to sell more and learn how to be Ricky Morton instead of trying to be convincing and go for the big spots, you could see longer careers.
Who do you think sells the best on the main roster for WWE right now?
I'm going to go with Sami Zayn.
Okay.
He's a consistent worker. And he underrated talent.
Okay. What about you, Nick?
Trying to ponder that one. Actually, Sammy's not a bad guess. I will say this. If nothing else, though, Rollins, if you hurt that leg, he will work it the whole match. So he does pretty good. You put me on the spot. I'm trying to think across the roster. Those probably, honestly, would be two of my top ones. I mean, because they don't forget. That's what I get. I get annoyed with I forget that I'm hurt. You know, and they
in-ring memory.
Yeah, like if your leg's been worked on for 15 minutes. Okay, when the ring limp.
We talked about this last time. You know, I've heard indie promoters talk about, you know, tell a guy that he wanted to wanted him to sell the leg until he was 100 miles away. You know, I mean, to me, hey, do that. Keep kayfabe. Good Lord. Yeah. I think, and I don't necessarily know that he is the best seller, but I really like the way he takes bumps. I like Dolph Ziggler a lot.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think he's the second coming of Kurt Hennig. He's a little smaller than Kurt, but Kurt would have those big bumps. He would really sell, you know, being hit, being punched, and he's got the athleticism to do a lot of things that Kurt did.
Yeah, but Ziggler is cursed with some of the worst script writing, and that's where his shortfall is, and it's not him. It's the writing he's been given to work with, because nobody knows what to do with a guy who's talented, who may not be the most like over the top character, or who isn't the most Mr. Sell the T-shirt. You know, he's just a good wrestler.
Here's the thing: make him a Bob Roop. Make him this guy was a talented, badass amateur wrestler. There's nothing wrong with Nick Nemeth, or Nemeth, however it's pronounced. There's nothing wrong with that. Dolph Ziggler, you know, so you start with a name. Nobody believes that name, number one.
Yeah, he's caught kind of like he's in the tail end of that generation that all the people in wrestling had over the top gimmicks, and you had Plumber, you had mechanic, garbage men, and he got a gimmick as you know, what he has a title.
I used to joke. They called him the Show Off.
The Show Off.
But my thing is, the name screams porn star versus it does like wrestler.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I do think it's like an homage to Dirk Diggler in Boogie Nights.
Yeah. Oh, I never thought about that.
That's exactly.
That is 100%.
And then the character is a cross between Billy Gunn and Shawn Michaels. What he wants to be.
Yeah. Here's the thing: I don't care if and I hate to say this, I like to watch his work. I don't really care if he goes over or not. I'd love to see more of him on my TV. I put that guy, because he can work. Put that guy in a 30-minute match on TV.
And
win or lose.
Kalisto and Apollo. Those bad storylines where it's just garbage and nobody wants to see it. Now he's got this storyline developing with Nakamura right now that I think will be good, because those two guys are so solid in the ring. They've just got to let it develop right to make it interesting enough for people to watch.
As long as he doesn't pick up another concussion, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good, safe place for the two of them right now, I think.
But, like, you know, I love Nakamura. I think he's phenomenal. Sorry, AJ, but Nakamura is probably my number one. When I see him on TV, I can't look away.
Yeah.
Legit reason that I got the WWE Network was to see Nakamura.
That's fair enough.
In a WWE ring.
Yeah.
Period. You know, I want to see. I've seen his Japanese work. I think it's incredible. I want to see what they're going to do with him. So that's worth $10 a month for me.
Yeah, but what was cool about him? Did you read there was a quote or something, or an article or something about him where he actually said one of the things he loved about coming to WWE is something we just addressed with the sheep herders. He loved that he could pull back a little bit on his body. He's like, I don't have to wrestle that Japanese style anymore. I can wrestle more. He still mixes in obviously a lot of it, but he's nothing like he was over in Japan. It's a lot safer on his body, and he gets to be more entertainer, than wrestler, and he thinks it's going to stretch his career out a little bit on the back end.
It's a bigger platform.
And the great thing about him, we actually, it was a SmackDown recap show this week, where basically some caller mentioned, did you hear that when we got
I did not listen.
Myron wasn't on that show, and it was just Nathan and I. And some guy was like, "Oh, I don't know about this Nakamura guy," and I said, "Hold on." It was a caller. And I just went, okay, he's a star. You've lost your mind. Went off on a rant for a couple of minutes about, I'm about to throw this guy off of the show. Because, I was like, go watch him in Japan and watch
so
NXT.
Much background work on him. I mean, there's so much stuff to see on this guy.
Yeah. So
there's no video to prove he's a star.
Right.
Just watch him.
The fun thing to me is working a lighter American style. And no matter how stiff WWE is, it is still lighter than Japanese style.
Well, everything's lighter than Japanese style right now.
Ooh, man, no kidding. Don't take it, kids, if you're listening, don't take unprotected headbutts. Don't give them. Don't take them.
Oh.
Somebody wants to do that spot. Tell them no.
Gallagher now is the one that scares me. He's gonna
the little Englishman.
Yeah, he's gonna forget his name and poop his pants in about 2 years if he keeps doing that kind of stuff.
Well, listen, I like the old world of sport stuff. One of my first memories is Johnny Eagles, who was a British wrestler, and then Tony Charles, who you guys probably never heard of. But, and Les Thornton. They worked that British world of sport style, and it's great to watch. The thing that I look at, and Cornette says this, and I completely agree with him, the difference is now you can tell how much they're helping each other, and they're stiff where they don't need to be stiff, and they're not acting like it's a fight or a real wrestling match where they need to act like it's a real wrestling match.
Mm-hmm. That's a reasonable point on that one. I agree with you 100%.
I mean, you can grow, if you want to headbutt somebody, grow your fucking hair out and throw the damn headbutt where it looks like you headbutt them. And, where your hair hits them, both of your careers will be longer,
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Give me, I was talking with somebody about this. Give me the claw as a finishing move again.
Yeah.
Not like Rene Goulet.
Like a Fritz von Erich.
Like a Fritz von Erich or a Blackjack Mulligan.
Ooh.
Put the claw on somebody, make them bleed. I know that's a no-no these days in WWE, but put the claw on them, make it. Because if you've ever goofed around with your friends and you put the claw on somebody, that shit hurts.
If they've got the
yeah. I mean, here's the thing. They're just all they're doing is putting their hand on somebody's forehead and holding it down instead of squeezing. But if you legit put your hand on somebody's forehead and squeeze right at the temples and the front of their head, that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
That's a believable. It may not be.
I've got older brothers. I can attest that the claw hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was about to say, if you've ever had a big, like a big brother, who's held you down and been like, hold still. I'm going to put this on you, which I may have done to someone. I'm not saying that I have or have not until the statute of limitations on assault runs out.
In recreating sports entertainment you're not supposed to try at home, you can write that kind of liability because no better to try it at home.
But here's the thing: there are things that legitimately I'm entertained by as a finish. I still, to this day, and I look at it differently now, and I appreciate it differently. The Von Erich claw, you had a bunch of baby faces in the 1980s using a claw as a finish.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. What other baby face have you ever seen, with the exception of Blackjack Mulligan Jr., Barry Windham, on occasion, very early in his career in Knoxville, and maybe even in Florida a couple of times. But weird for a babyface to have a claw as a finisher.
That is.
Yeah, think about that. Think about how odd that is. The claw is normally a heel finishing move.
Baron von Raschke, that kind of yeah. Like Blackjack Mulligan, was the babyface down in Florida when I was there that was using it, and that was about it.
But
he had used it for a long time as a heel to set it up as a finish.
Oh yeah.
Well, in that vein, when Asuka and Bayley were both in NXT, and Asuka, I think it's either the rematch or the first match they had where Bayley lost the title, and Asuka choked her out.
Mm-hmm.
She was unconscious. Really, nobody was hurt by that when you think about it. It was an amazing finish that you watch and like, oh my God, she can't continue because, it wasn't a case of her tapping out or giving up. She was out cold, but she wasn't out cold. But it both sold it well, and it's a perfect way for her to leave the territory, not being beat or tapping out, but the fact that she passed out in a sleeper hold of sorts. That was a very popular move.
Yeah, remember what I just said a few minutes ago about everything old is new again? There was a point where the sleeper was a legit finish for guys like Vern Gagne, for Nick Bockwinkel, for Bob Armstrong, for I think for Rowdy Roddy Piper too at one point.
That was Piper's finish, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, you look at this, but that's 20, 30 years ago now. You bring that back as a finish, nobody gets hurt.
Yeah.
It depends on the person who's selling it. Jesus, I mean, sell it the way you're supposed to, and it's a legit finish.
I agree.
And you don't have to go back to, of course, the business evolves. You don't have to go back to slapping somebody on the back of the neck to quote unquote wake them up. But I mean, you might get like, if the Vaudevillains were still there, they could use that as a finish. The old style sleeper where you have to wake them up. Yeah. But that was hot though. That was
that was the perfect way to draw heat because the babyface Hogan was the best one to ever put in a sleeper, in my opinion. Just to see him shaking his arms coming up. The referee would arm up once and it'd fall. And he'd hold his arm up twice and it'd fall. And he'd go for that third and as Hogan's arm went down, you'd see it start shaking and it'd come back up and he powered out of that sleeper hold. That to me, that was just epic. And the crowd was nuts when that happened.
But now, what would have been cooler?
What's that?
Here's a little fantasy booking for you. Have him put it over one time.
Yeah.
Have him put it over in a non-title match where somebody puts him out with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then, like, let's say a non-title match on Saturday night's main event. He puts a sleeper over where he has been put to sleep. Well, you follow that up with the pay-per-view a month later or however long, where Piper or whomever was using the sleeper at the time. Whoever's using it, they're like, I know how to beat Hulk Hogan now. Yeah. I can do it. I can take him out. And sell Hogan as truly worried about it, and then have that moment of the arm drop once, the arm drop twice, and oh my God, he's still he's still got some life left in him. Yeah. So that to me, like, that's one of the reasons to put over a finishing move like or even a submission move like that on occasion, like the figure 4 leg lock. That shit really hurts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. That's been done.
You know?
I think that, God, they ought to give Rusev, sorry.
The permanent one? Never mind. I didn't say.
Wrong, Rusev, the Russian, the Bulgarian one.
Mm-hmm.
Give him the sleeper. That'd be a convincing move.
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely would. Like or you could even do something like and because he's almost got an MMA gimmick anyway, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like as kind of a, I don't know if that's fair to say or not, but you can do something like if you wanted to draw MMA fans or whomever, you could give him an arm in sleeper hold where it traps one arm inside. And uses the opponent's shoulder and his own arm to kind of put him asleep.
That's a good one. That's a real solid
one. So, something like that, or something like Punk's been gone long enough they could use the Anaconda device.
Mm-hmm.
Punk's been gone. He's not coming back. Okay, let somebody else use it.
I say let Roman go heel and let him use it. That would be from hell.
That'd be oh my gosh, he would yeah, he'd draw money with that. I mean, he would draw money for himself and for the promotion with that.
Yeah,
people would be so pissed. And if you're gonna have a hardcore audience there anyway,
I
mean, fuck with them a little bit,
Yeah. Oh,
I mean. Make them mad. Make them mad, and then you can go, hey, guess what? It's all work, kid.
Mark the smart.
Yeah.
You'll make them fall for it.
Might as well. They're not making any money. No, that's not fair to say. But they're not drawing.
Yeah.
They are not drawing the way wrestling used to draw, and I don't even mean WWE.
No, you're talking about
what I mean. Yeah, countrywide. Where you had territory promotions who were filling arenas every night. You had, say, Southeastern, which is the territory that I'm most familiar with, 4,000, 5,000 seat arenas. You do a 4 or 5 day loop.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you're pulling in 20,000 people. In Alabama,
mm-hmm.
There are places in Alabama you can go. You can't see 20,000 people. Most of the towns in Alabama don't even have 20,000 people in them. But they'll come out. They'll come out of the woods to go watch some wrestling.
Oh yeah.
This is back in the day. Now everybody's kind of like, oh well, hey, I'm gonna go watch the Barons game, and I heard there's some wrestling, but I kind of like this baseball thing where they're doing this promotion.
Yeah. Well,
I'm gonna go.
They got to get that whole reach out and grab you by the nuts storyline, and the characters to get you to feel
right.
And with all this talk about the old school wrestling, Bob, it's something I've been wanting to ask you. Probably one of the oldest territories that is basically on paper still existing, NWA, was recently bought by Billy Corrigan. Billy Corrigan.
Billy Corrigan smashing pumpkins.
What did he buy? Look at their website.
Well, he bought. I'm like a deer with no eyes and no genitalia. No fucking eye deer. So I mean, seriously,
he bought a belt.
He bought a belt and he bought a name. I think that Dave Milliken would have sold him a belt a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. He didn't buy any promotion, any like regional promotion where the NWA title is defended. Yeah. It looks like he's going to have to make any money at it. This is my first thought, and I'm kind of we made the transition so quickly. I'm kind of got to get my thoughts in order here. But Myron, that's a great question. Here's what I think. Billy Corrigan is bound and determined to give somebody some money to be involved in wrestling. Yeah, they call those guys money marks.
Ooh.
And I don't, and I say that with no disrespect. I mean, I love wrestling. If I could be involved in the industry in some way, in a way that fulfilled me and actually made money for me,
yeah,
I would totally do it. All right. So, here's what I think.
Is he the man?
I don't think so. I think that he's definitely not going to launch it to new heights. I think you have a couple of things. I think Bruce Tharp was ready to let go of the NWA. He was the owner of the entity known as the NWA. He's also the reason that Colt Cabana and Adam Pearce left the 10 pounds of gold in the ring in Australia at the end of their seven title, best of 7 title match series.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of them wanted to work for him. So here's what I think. He's going to have to blow it up if he wants to keep the name NWA. He's not going to be able to run a territory system and give promoters dates with the champion like the NWA normally would do. The NWA was never a homogenous entity. It was always a bunch of promoters trying their best to work together to secure their own little kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was push and pull back and forth. Eddie Graham was president of the NWA for a while. Bob Geigel was. Then Jim Crockett was. But they would send, a territory would get dates with the champion. You would build toward those dates so that you would have a sellout house for when the champion came. It wasn't just the NWA title on the line, which had a draw.
Yeah.
But it was also, hey, you built your guy up. You put something on the line. Somebody was going to get a title shot for holding the regional championship, for the territory title, or something. So he's not going to be able to do that because the infrastructure is not there to do that. I anticipate he will probably put the NWA back on TV somewhere and work it kind of like NWA TNA was. You remember when TNA first started and they had the NWA title on TNA. I would anticipate that's what Corrigan will do, only now he doesn't have to worry about the NWA pulling the World's Championship.
Mm-hmm.
All he, and I'm going to sneeze here in a second, guys, sorry. But I think that he doesn't have to worry about a promoter trying to pull the world title. I think the NWA name has enough cachet still to draw casual viewers who remember what wrestling was like,
mm-hmm.
specifically in the South and Southeast.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he can draw viewers long-term or draw any money, I have serious reservations. I'm going to actually do a little news analysis article on ProWrestlingStories.com tomorrow, talking about where he could go with it, and I'm still kind of in the midst of researching it. But just me, in my opinion, I don't see that being successful. I see him potentially selling the NWA name or not making a ton of money in wrestling. I don't think he's a bad businessman by any stretch, but this is a guy who got fooled by Dixie Carter.
Yes. He's emotionally passionate about this kind of stuff, and that's the worst kind of person to be with money.
It is. I mean, to be fair, he did get his money and more back. But just the fact that, hey, Dixie Carter was able to con you out of money. I mean,
the NWA thing is who has the library? Where is the library? Where is the video? Where is the actual product people want to see? If you have that, you have a huge asset. You can.
He doesn't have that.
Or
he doesn't have that.
Well, all the promotions, the territories had their own library. So, like I said, he eventually, I feel horrible saying what I'm about to say. I think we're so far removed as far as a generation. There's a generation who doesn't even know what the NWA is. It means
absolutely
nothing to them. So you can be a wrestling fan your entire life at this point and be in your 20s and have no idea what we're talking about. And if you said WCW, it means a little, to me, it means a little more to that younger generation, because at least then they were kind of on the tail end of it. So that was my worry when he bought it. I actually went, what did he really get of value other than, the belt? I mean, and that the history that goes with the belt. But even that, somebody like Flair or, they kind of stole that thunder on a lot of it. I don't know what
he doesn't have there's no tape library that I know of that he can have. I think Bruce Tharp was posting like the NWA has some on-demand service.
Yeah, I've
heard
of.
I'm sure they do have some video, but it's not going to be like when WCW was bought out. All of their archives, and this is going back to Jim Crockett Promotions, all their archives are on the WWE Network, which is a great. It's great to be able to go back and see stuff. I'm working my way through several Starcades.
Yeah.
And Lord help me, I will never watch Starcade '84 again, if I can help it. So Starcade '84 is the one where Joe Louis stops the match due to blood loss of Dusty Rhodes.
Yes, that stuff doesn't hold up to your memory on some things.
Yeah, I've tried rewatching the worst first ECW pay-per-view.
The worst thing about the Starcade '84 was this. Every fucking buddy on the goddamn card bled. and almost all of them bled worse than Dusty Rhodes did in the main event.
And that's the match that got stopped, right? Yeah.
And that's the match that got stopped. I mean, I don't want to shit on anybody's booking, any more than I have to. But come on, that's terrible. When you've got a brass knucks title match between Black Bart and Manny Fernandez, which was actually a really good match, but they're both bleeding all over the place. And then Manny Fernandez is the guy who comes out to put a towel over Dusty Rhodes' face, and Manny's still he's not bleeding anymore, but he's got a big bandage over the cut. Come on, think about that for a little bit, guys.
Smart booking would tell you if the finish to the main event is blood loss, I think a smart booker would say nobody on the card gets to bleed.
Exactly, nobody else on the card gets to bleed.
The first match.
Yeah, the best match on that card is Tully Blanchard versus Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah, I get that, but that's a classic.
Everything's crisp. It's for the NWA TV title. Everything's crisp. Everything looks great. It looks like a legitimate sporting contest. It looks like they want to win. I mean, and that's kind of the other thing, Myron, that we get into when we talk about the differences and the kayfabe stuff. It's not just hey, don't hang out with your buddy. I know you guys are friends, but you're in a program against each other right now. It's not just that. When's the last time you saw a match where it looked like it was important for somebody to win? I think for me, it's probably Sami Zayn versus Cesaro back in NXT. They tore the house down.
Wow.
And they looked like it was important to them to win.
I will give you a more recent one. I had to give big time props, and you're not going to be shocked by when I say the name. Monday on Raw, during that tag team turmoil, which I hate the concept of the match, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
But before that match, Goldust's backstage promo with R-Truth, with Ron Killens, when he's telling him, the delivery was so good. He made the comment of, our win-loss record hasn't been really good as of late, and this might be our last chance. We need to come through. The promo is saying how important this match was to them. Like, this may be it, buddy. We got to win this match, or we may be done.
Yeah.
The promo, I don't know if you saw it. Just his delivery.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was money. But of course, then I'm sitting there going, well,
he's still a Rhodes.
He's a Rhodes. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and it just, even with the pain on his expression, was you could see he was so serious. There was none of the yuck stuff with him and R-Truth. It was like, look, man, our win-loss record over the last year it's really not been up to par. He's like, if we don't win this match, this might be it for us. We may never get a shot at the gold again. So we've got to win this. We've got to take this serious.
Absolutely. That's some good. That's one of the things that I look at, thinking about. Why are you out here in the ring if it's not to win?
Yeah.
I mean, why else have a match?
Why play if you ain't gonna win?
There's
Exactly.
two reasons a match should be happening. One, you're chasing gold. Two, you want revenge for something somebody's done to you.
You got a personal issue with somebody. Absolutely.
Otherwise, it should be a squash match. That's my opinion. There's no reason.
I don't disagree with you.
Perfectly fair.
Yeah, I hate the Dolph Ziggler is wrestling, another wrestler they have no feud against each other. They literally just have been thrown in a match.
They have a 3-hour show they have to put on every week.
Yeah, so it's like, let's just throw these two against each other just to fill 15, 20 minutes of the program or whatever. I'm like, really? They have no reason other than make it like. Jim Ross has brought something up on his thing, and I know we're holding you long. We won't keep you much longer. I just wanted to ask your opinion on this. Jim Ross used to bring up the concept of maybe a ranking system. Every match matters, because if you lose, if number 8 is wrestling number 6 and he beats him, it moves him up in the rankings to get closer to a shot at the title. 6 doesn't want to lose, because if he loses to 8, that means he's going to fall.
Yeah, this is here's the thing. WCW did that. I don't know if you remember this or not, either in the late 80s or early 90s. Actually had top 10 rankings that they would show on camera. Do you guys remember this at all?
I do. Yeah, actually, that's kind of when the thing. Okay. That's what Jim Ross brings it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. So I had not heard him talk about this. So I like that idea in theory. What's the most successful pro wrestling promotion in the world right now?
WWE.
Yeah.
Negative. UFC.
Right.
What happens in the cage may be real, but the stuff, and I'm going some more with this, I promise, the stuff that happens outside, the interviews that are done, the shoving and pushing at the weigh-ins and whatnot.
It's a work, yeah.
And all that's a work. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But here's the thing. They're all fighting for something. Even the lowest level guy, even the guy who is opening the show at UFC, is wanting to beat somebody to climb the ladder to get a shot at the championship. I mean, that's the deal. That's and so I absolutely agree. I don't know that they need to give them, a top 10 every week, but if they want to go back to put a little bit of sports in sports entertainment, which would be really nice, a ranking system where, hey, if you beat this guy, you're next in line for a shot at the Intercontinental title. And you know what the Intercontinental title means? You win the Intercontinental title, you're in line for a shot at the World's Championship.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you win the U.S. title, you are in line, you are the number one contender for the Universal title. That, to me, is simple. That gives your titles prestige, even your secondary ones, because, oh, this is why I want to be the Intercontinental Champion. You know, there are a few reasons to want to be champion, and most of them have nothing to do with pride. It should have to do with money. Yep. And being, you know, and then secondary should be being the best. It should be like, the reason that I want the World Championship, the reason I want the Intercontinental title is because it gets me in line for the World title. It gets me a shot.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And you do that, you value your titles. Mm-hmm. It's not just a prop anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, it still is. It's still a prop. But to the fan, they're like, now I can see why they want now I see why Dean Ambrose wants to be Intercontinental Champion. Mm-hmm. Because it gets him a shot at the world title, to make more money, to be more successful, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's my my take on that. So I'm all for more sports in my sports entertainment.
Yes, sir.
I may be in the minority there.
I don't believe so. I think that's probably what a lot of us want, is that we want it to be, like I say, when you can be emotionally invested because there's a reason why the winner matters. I mean, because the problem I have with somebody like, and then we'll end it on this note, I guess, is when Dolph Ziggler loses, after a while, you're like, I don't think it matters if he wins or loses anymore.
Right.
Because he comes out every week and he doesn't change. They tried that angle with him where he said, like, oh, I'm going to have the attitude change because I keep losing.
Uh-huh.
But he's still losing. And it's, and I'm like, okay, so that's not even helping you. Now what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. Although he did have a really funny line where he's like, sorry, Mom. He's on his phone. He goes, sorry, Mom, I lost again, but I tried really hard, and that's what counts.
Exactly.
Like, no, Dolph, that's not what counts. The fact that people think that's what counts in WWE is part of the problem. You don't have. So a couple of things, real quick, and I will stop. But here's the deal. If you're a wrestler who is not winning on television, and you change gimmick, change something, you better win. Don't be Barry Horowitz, who went with the long-term losing streak.
Yep.
Yeah, long-term.
Don't be that guy.
Over. Yeah, losing streaks don't typically get you over. I mean,
Right. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate that.
As always, it is wonderful. Get to talk to you. It's like having just wrestling, good old wrestling pit talk, just sitting around. We'll have to have you over at the house when the beer's flowing and the wrestling's on TV, okay?
Hey, I hear you. I enjoyed it, guys. Okay. Look, can I get a couple of quick plugs?
No way. This is plug time for you.
Oh, well, let me plug a couple of things. So, on ProWrestlingStories.com, and I have to say that, I have to pay the bills, ProWrestlingStories.com, which is doing a great job of producing new content weekly.
Oh, my God. You're not kidding. I can't even keep up. Good.
We're bringing in new stuff all the time.
Uh-huh.
And I would like to say that it's all interesting. Some of it's more interesting than others. But it is becoming just a repository for all things in wrestling history that are of interest to fans. I'm really not putting that over as well as I should, but here's what I mean by that. If you have an inkling or a memory of someone who was important to you in the wrestling business, we probably have a story about that person.
Oh yeah, it's like the old card catalog system in the library. You might look at one thing, but as you're thumbing through, you see a title. It's like, Oh God, I forgot all about that.
Uh-huh. I have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, and then you read a story about something that happened 30 years ago or something that happened 2 years ago that you footnoted, and you get the background behind what's going on, and it makes a personal connection with you.
If you don't think you're putting it over enough, I'll put it over even more so. If you follow us on Twitter or on Facebook, you have seen. It seems like daily that I find an article or two every day that I'm like, oh man, you have got to read this article, and I post it on there and like read it, and I try to tag you in it all the time if it's your article.
Absolutely.
But
I appreciate that.
Well, I tagged Brian last, and I tried to get him to read your Midnight Express story, because if anybody appreciate it, it's him, because he understands this kind of stuff. Because that article is phenomenal.
Thank you.
I don't mean to just plug you on this, because there's a lot of really good content on there besides what you're doing.
As long as we can say that mine is the best. I'm just kidding.
Always the first article I read, I might see a link to somebody else's article and read it if I get mistaken.
Hey, I get it.
Yeah, and plus we'll make sure we tag that Midnight Express article again when this drops. We'll make sure it's kind of like a companion piece. We'll say, "Hey, listen to the show, go read the article." And
awesome. So here's the thing: Jim Cornette retweeted that story, the Midnight Express story, and for me to get kind of like the kudos from Jim Cornette, who is I'm dying to interview Jim Cornette, because I feel like I have some questions for him that I've never heard him ask before. And if you guys think that I'm kind of an wrestling encyclopedia, which you guys have been very kind to say that about me, I'm like Encarta or Wikipedia. I'm like Encarta 95 that would come on the,
with your AOL or whatever.
Exactly, that would come with your AOL account back in the day.
Jim Cornette retweeted that article.
Jim Cornette, yeah, he did. It was highlight of my wrestling writing life. Really, really, really cool.
You got wrestling wood,
but Cornette's a legit wrestling encyclopedia. He is like Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah.
Compared to my Encarta. So there are things that I would love. Listen, I started to say Wikipedia, but because I'm like Wikipedia, I'm fueled by secondary sources and innuendo, rumor, and apocrypha, and occasionally bourbon. So anyway, we have a couple of things coming up that I do want to plug. Number one, tomorrow I will share a short story, at least short for me. It's about 1,500 words, I think, is what I'm shooting for Billy Corrigan buying the NWA, talking a little bit about what the NWA was, why it fell off the way it did, and various attempts to bring it back, and whether or not this will be successful. That is Saturday, May 13th is when that will appear. Mm-hmm. And then the next week, I'm looking forward to this. The story of Don Jardine. The spoiler.
That's one I've been waiting on. You mentioned that the last time you were working on it.
Yeah.
The one I'm working on.
So what this basically will do, it kind of intertwines with The Undertaker, with Mark Calloway. Mm-hmm. Because Jardine, everyone knows Old School, where Undertaker walks the ropes.
Yep. Yeah.
Don Jardine was doing that 30 years before Undertaker was doing it.
Yeah, that's where he took the idea from. Yep. Well,
not a lot of people know this, but Jardine is the one who is chiefly responsible for training Undertaker. And on YouTube, you can actually find what I believe is Mark Calloway's first match, which is him as Texas Red in the World Class Wrestling Association in 1987, I think it was. Him versus the Spoiler.
Ooh.
And it is very much two big guys here, the Spoiler leading Calloway through the match. It's very interesting. We'll link to that. But things that he learned and things that he didn't learn. Basically, the story is Mark Calloway approached Buzz Sawyer. Do you guys know about the story?
No, go ahead, tell it.
Okay, so Calloway approached Buzz Sawyer to learn how to wrestle, wanted to be taught the business. Sawyer agreed to teach him, took his money, which was $2,000 or $3,000, I think, at the time. And this is 86, 87. So that's a considerable sum of money, more so then than now.
All went up his nose.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. He taught him how to lock up. Essentially taught him how to lock up. And then left the territory. And so,
about like the stories I've heard about him.
And that is, the apocrypha thing here is when Buzz Sawyer died, Calloway said, "Tell me where he's buried so I can go piss on his grave." So, and I don't know if that's 100% true, but I wouldn't doubt it. If somebody had screwed you over for several $1,000s, you might feel the same way.
I'd have done it. I'd probably do it over 25 these days.
Yeah. I hear you. Money gets tight sometimes. One other thing that I am working on, and this is not a ProWrestlingStories.com exclusive, but I do want to plug it. I am working on a pro wrestling themed novel. So, which is essentially the story of a retired pro wrestler who is running a bar, and his best friend, former world champion, a flamboyant wild man, woo, who might be based on someone, if you get that.
Oh yeah.
But comes in, and when the wild man leaves, he is gunned down outside of the bar, and the former wrestler takes it upon himself to go find the person responsible for killing his best friend. Kind of a 60s, 70s noir sort of thing, based in pro wrestling. So
solid premise, literary thing. That is going to be a good read, Bob. You did a good job.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really good read.
I hope so. We are talking about, and I say that it's not a ProWrestlingStories.com thing. It may be. We're talking about different ways to publish it.
Serial?
So, but I'm not. I'm about 4,000 words into it right now, and I want it to be probably 100,000 words long. So, it's going to be a significant piece. We want to, or I say I want to publish it in the best way possible to make it accessible for readers. So, still talking about that. So we'll see. I'm absolutely giving JP at Pro Wrestling Stories. I'm giving him right of first refusal because he treats me really well.
Yeah. He's been really good to us too, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, he I can't put him over enough. He does a great job running the site. He probably lets me get away with more than I should get away with, but I get to write about a passion of mine and get encouraged and get paid for it. And so I I appreciate that as much as I can put him over. Absolutely great guy, and does a great job with the site.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, Bob.
Same here.
Look forward to everything you write, and we always look forward to these conversations because I'm always picking tidbits out that I get from you that can't get anywhere else, and I'm learning new things. It's like a learning experience to sit at the foot of the master.
Yeah, and just so you know, you always have a place. When that book comes out, the first place you got to plug is you can come on and we'll do a whole show about it. And
you can come on every couple of weeks.
Absolutely. You've always got a home here with us. We love having you on. We love getting to talk old school wrestling. We talk, obviously on our network, we've got a lot of current product shows and things like that. It's always nice to, even in this day and age, that people go, it's old school. They're covering. We're about to add a new show. I don't know if you've heard. It's on Thursdays. We're going to reshuffle our schedule around, and we're going to have a show. They're calling themselves the DDT Archives. They're basically.
I saw that.
Yeah, they're going to cover old school pay-per-views, and we're talking 80s. So it's kind of like that's crazy. Because I'm like you. I think old school. I think 70s, 80s.
Right.
Like you said, the territory days and stuff like that. So it's nice to have somebody on that we can talk that generation of wrestling versus because everybody now seems like they gets in this business that we're doing. They're in their 20s, their early 30s, if that, and we're like, good God, are we the old guard in this thing now?
Right.
I mean,
right. I get that completely. I feel like when you've been a wrestling fan for so long, you see just the threads from the past that come through.
Yeah.
The stuff that worked back in the day, and then, if it worked in the 70s, it might have been recycled in the 80s and then in the 90s. And then, oh, wow, hey, here comes that angle again. Here comes and they put a different spin on it, a little fresh paint, and try to pep it up. And I think that's one of the neat things about being a fan today. Having been a fan since I was 5 years old.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it.
Talk to you, Bob. We'll be talking to you soon. Always a pleasure to interact with you on Facebook and Twitter. You have a great day.
Same here.
And man, I got so much to think about.
Yeah,
today.
we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Okay, Bob. Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys.
And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Part 2 of the Bobby Mathews interview that we did about a week or so ago. We always love having Bobby in. Like I said at the beginning, he's a great, great encyclopedia of pro wrestling knowledge. We always like having him on. Hey, if you ever have any questions, man, shoot us some questions. We can ask Bobby. Maybe one episode we'll do a Ask Bobby Mathews about old classic wrestling. He's, like I said, an encyclopedia of the old NWA, AWA, Southeastern, all that classic stuff from back in the 70s and 80s. And if you ever want to send us those questions, man, just send them to tappedoutwrestlingpodcast@gmail.com, tappedoutwrestlingpodcast@gmail.com, over to Twitter @tappedoutpod, that is @tappedoutpod, or you can find us on Facebook at Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. And, of course, last but not least, go to the website, man, tappedoutwrestlingpodcast.com. All of the social media links, all of the iTunes, Google Play, that stuff is all there for you to find. And, of course, man, the media player is right down the middle. We make it pretty simple to find us, man. You can either listen to it right there, you can download the MP3 from those links, subscribe to iTunes, subscribe to Google Play, subscribe to Overcast, YouTube, you name it, man. We're everywhere. Stitcher, we're there as well. So anywhere, all those options are available for you. And again, guys, our Fight app and our Amazon affiliate links are there. Use those, man, to help support the show. We plug those pretty regularly, so you guys should know how to use them by now. Definitely, we will look forward again and having Bobby on once again. Make sure, though, you're always checking out this week. We got some big things coming this week. We do have Curtis Cole from Rocky Mountain Pro. He's the former Charged Heavyweight Champion, which is essentially their television champion. Of course, we've got the Raw and the SmackDown Live recap shows. We have the debut. Yes, that's right. We said the debut of the DDT Archives. It's a new show. It's going to be on Thursdays. Throwback Thursday is what we're going with, to the DDT Archives. And what they're going to do is they're going to take old wrestling pay-per-views, WWE, ECW, WCW, all those old pay-per-views. Matter of fact, they used to be the High Spots, Low Blows podcast. Their last episode, they did Super Clash 3, which was like an AWA, USWA pay-per-view, man. It was like, oh, God, it was the best of the bad, is the way we like to say sometimes. So make sure you check those guys out on Thursdays now at the DDT Archives. Fridays, we've moved the Dorks. They used to be our Thursday show. They have moved to Fridays now. So basically the way the schedule looks right now, Mondays are going to be an interview show. Tuesday will be the podcast version of the Raw recap. Wednesday is the SmackDown Live recap. Don't forget those two shows are live at 11:30 on Monday nights and Tuesdays at 11 to cover the Raw and SmackDown shows respectively. But the podcast version drops the following day. Then, like I said, the DDT archives are on Thursdays, and now the Wrestling Dorks have moved to Fridays. So definitely, and obviously you guys have heard, we do have, starting June 5th, a new podcast that'll be covering Ring of Honor and NXT. So definitely check those out. And then, hey, subscribe. That's what we tell you. And with that being said, man, it's time for us to tap out.